Good morning, everyone, and welcome to UC Irvine's Stay at Homecoming Women in Sports panel. I'm Olivia Phelps, class of 2013, and it's such a privilege to be your host today in the company of such incredible women. I'm joined by an esteemed group of women in sports, and I'd like to introduce to you our panelists now. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Kimberly Layton, class of 1986, Los Angeles Chargers Vice President of External Affairs. Paula Smith, UC Irvine's very own athletic director, and Ashley Frame, class of 2006, and the current UC Irvine women's volleyball head coach. Welcome, everyone. It's so wonderful to be with you all today. I do want to mention we have an opportunity for a live Q&A, so please send us your questions in the live Q&A portal at any point during our discussion. So I'd like to start by letting everyone talk a little bit about their journey and what led them to where they are today. Kimberly, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Well, when I was growing up, I never dreamed about being one of the longest tenured women in the NFL or being a vice president for an NFL team because that just wasn't on your radar yet as a young girl. And you also have to remember that when I entered the working world, there were no sports management programs. There were not a lot of the sports business oriented programs that you have nowadays. So I kind of got my job the old fashioned way. I knew somebody to call. And to kind of put that into perspective, before joining the Chargers, I spent 14 years working for elected officials in San Diego, and my last job was as the chief of staff to the mayor of the city of San Diego. And in that position, I got to know both of the professional sports teams in our city because I was having to work with them on the stadium. They were tenants of our stadium. So when the mayor that I was working for was terming out of office, I got a call from a mutual friend who said the Chargers are looking to create a community relations department. And I think you have the skill set in the background that is exactly what they need to get them to hit the ground running. And you've got to remember that more than 20 years ago, the NFL didn't have community relations departments. It was a new thing. Marketing might do something, PR might do something, but there was no concerted effort at that point like there was in Major League Baseball. MLB had been doing it for a long time, but a lot of that was what we call butts in seats. You honor somebody on the field, their friends all buy a $10 ticket and they come watch. Well, I'm sure our friends all love us. Nobody's going to spend probably $90 on a ticket to watch you get honored on the field for 30 seconds. So it was a different animal. But they said, you need to do this. And I said, there is no way in heck that Dean is going to hire me because the man pretty much hates me. And, you got to remember, I was always having to go to him when it was negotiations or contracts or things like that. So not always pleasant conversations. So I didn't call. And a couple of weeks later, they called back and said, you haven't called? And I said, yes, and I'm not going to. And they said, yeah, you are, because I told them you're calling. And I mustered up all of my, positive energy and confidence that I could. And I called him and I said, I understand, you're looking to create this department. Susan's termed out of office. I'm looking to do something radically different. I am just burned out on politics. And it's just silent on the other end of the phone. And I thought, oh God, this is terrible. This is terrible. And I'm sure it was not as long as it felt to me. And he finally said, really, you'd be interested? Okay, I want you to meet with our vice president, who's going to be overseeing the department. Went in, met with him. Very last question the man asked me was, do you like football? It's not a prerequisite for the job, but do you like football? And I have to remember, and at the time I thought to myself, would he be asking a guy this question if they were sitting in this chair? But he said, do you like football? Well, I love football. But the truth is, I love college football. And I had that moment of hesitation of, do I tell the truth? Or do I just say, oh yeah, I love football? And you got to remember, you couldn't Google people back then. I had no way of knowing where this man had come from. I had no way of knowing what his background was. And so I decided, go with the truth. And I said, I love football, but honestly, I love college football more than I love pro. Well, I didn't know he'd come from the college ranks. About a year after I joined the team, he decided he didn't like pro and he went back to the college ranks. And so he told me later that moment of truth of just telling him that I liked college football better than I liked pro had actually helped me get the job. So I started with the team, started creating their department for them. And my original plan was to only stay until the 2003 Super Bowl in San Diego, because I thought, okay, that's going to be kind of cool. And what happened was that by the time the 2003 Super Bowl came around, I had realized the impact that was possible working with a team and the power that an NFL brand has to drive support and change. And I was hooked. And to that point, I just finished my 21st season with the team. And so that's sort of in an odd way how I got to my career with the NFL.
Wow, that's wonderful. Congratulations, 21 years. That's so
Thank you.
exciting. Thank you for sharing. Paula, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. And good morning and good afternoon to those that are participating today. Um, I would say that my start in intercollegiate athletics started when I was a child. Um, I am a daughter of a United States Air Force enlisted, now veteran, and traveling around the country. The one thing that I always felt like made it an easy transition from moving from state to state, and in one part of my time out of the country, was to play sports. It didn't matter where you went, as long as you could play sports. It's a universal language. You just need to know the rules of the game, and you can get out and enjoy and meet new people, play sports, and just have a good time and meet new friends and learn the community. So that actually worked well for me when we traveled to Germany, of which that's probably when I started the greater part of my career in terms of athletics and playing and starting at that point in time. And it worked well being able to play a sport when I could barely speak the language. I could do my basic numbers and greetings, but that was
Mhm.
about it. And then we moved back to the United States in the late 70s. And similarly, we landed in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and it was an opportunity for me to meet new people yet again. And so I decided that I would play sports. I played in the community. I played fast pitch softball. My family is a pastime for us as a family activity. And so I used to bowl with my parents and my sisters. I loved bowling enough that I kept it going. My sisters and I, we bowled on the same team, and this would, it's rare for me to do a brag moment, but I would brag that we all loved it enough that we were successful at bowling and winning quite a few trophies. So they ended up splitting us up, so we could not be on the same team in any of the communities that we went to, and so it was just a fun thing to do, and I loved it and got great energy and made great friends out of it. So I played sports all through high school. In high school, I joined the basketball team and I joined the volleyball team, and in both respects, again, a great experience. Helped me through high school, again, networking. The one thing I would say about high school was if you've met me, you know that my stature is all but 5, and I may be exaggerating in my height. So I often say that my story for moving on to the next level of my career was stunted by my growth, but my growth continued when I went to New Mexico State, and that's where I went to college for my bachelor's degree. I was fortunate to have a work study job. So I said, where do I go and work here on campus? Seems interesting to me? The athletic department had a job open. So I applied for it, and I was able to work for the athletic director at New Mexico State for 4 years. And for me, it was a job, but it was a job in a business in the area that I loved. So I would be happy going to work. But my aspirations was to be actually accountant to start with, and then I realized numbers, sure numbers and counting details was not my interest, and so I changed to marketing. Again, back to people person. This is what athletics is really all about. It's about our talent. It is our personnel, and so I found a niche in marketing, but that's where I thought my career was going to head. One pivotal moment for me was my business law professor, who happened to be in this role called faculty athletic rep. And that position is an individual outside of athletics that has oversight And he just started talking to me about consideration of opportunities and careers. And the NCAA had started a new program to enhance minorities and women in sport. And so he recommended that I apply for a job at an internship with the Big West Conference. And so I was fortunate to have, coming out of college, the opportunity to apply for internships at the NCAA, as well as internships in what would have been my career field. And I had one opportunity, I had two opportunities on the table. One was to go to Alaska, and the other one was to go to California. So I think at this point in time, not necessary for me to tell you much more about that. I chose California, and I chose to work at the Big West Conference for an internship in my very first year. And so that was the road for me, and it just seemed like a natural road because of loving the love of sport and playing sports. I enjoy college athletics. Similarly to Kimberly, my interest has been in college sports. I have not had an aspiration for professional sports, and so I love the pureness of higher education. I love being at the entry level with student athletes and helping them get to their achievement points, both graduation, any accolades that they have athletically, and ultimately their drive for career. And so I decided this is a good field for me to be in. And after a year's internship, my supervisor suggested that I apply for the full-time job, and which I did. And here we go. Similarly, 30 years later, I'm in intercollegiate athletics, and I can't imagine being in any other field at this point in time. It really did. I get up every day and I enjoy going to work, and it doesn't matter what sport's playing, I'm in.
That's so special. What a wonderful journey. And there really is something that's so special about college athletics, which is a perfect segue, Coach, to you. Will you tell us a little bit about your journey to college athletics?
Sure. Thanks, Olivia. I'm honored and humbled to be here with Kimberly and Paula, and love hearing their stories. I love hearing Paula brag a little bit because it's really unusual to hear her do that. I was recruited out of high school to UC Irvine, and was actually pretty highly recruited by a variety of programs throughout the country. I'm from Thousand Oaks. I wanted to go really far away from home. I was looking at East Coast schools, and I ended up 90 miles from home in Irvine. When I came and visited the campus, the coaches were really persistent and believed in me as a player. I loved the campus. What's not to love if you've ever been on UC Irvine's campus? It's beautiful. Partly under construction still back then, as always. The girls on the team took me to Newport Beach, where they live. And I was like, I get to go to school here and live here. Sign me up. The program had won a couple games the year before, but I believed in the coach. I believed in the class of girls I was coming in with. We came into Irvine, only won a few games our first year, and by the end we were a team that was getting votes into the top 25. Our last 2 years making the NCAA tournament, beating who did we beat? Missouri, who was number 20 at the time, losing to UCLA, who was a top 8 team in the country at the time. So just really took pride in the progression we had as student athletes here, and what we did as a team. After my experience at UC Irvine, I'll brag a little bit, was Student Athlete of the Year in 2004. So I did well as a student here also. So I totally get, the challenge the girls face as Division I athletes, and also just the competitive academics here. So I help them navigate that as a coach. But also, was a little burnt out at the end of my career here, and didn't know if I want to keep playing volleyball, but ended up pursuing an opportunity to play professionally overseas. So I got on a team in Germany, where I played for a year, and then I played professionally in Croatia the following year. And then I was done with volleyball. I didn't want to ever see a volleyball again, and wanted to make a lot of money. So I went into financial investment banking, with UBS Financial, and the person I helped out, she happened to be the Dean of Student Learning, or former Dean of Student Learning at Moorpark College, a junior college up where I was from. So somehow, while working for her, I found my way back into the gym at Moorpark College and was helping out the volleyball team. And the coach there said, you know, this would be a great job for you. You know, you get to coach volleyball, you get to teach classes. It's the best of both worlds. So I would go to my investment banking job at 6 a.m. under fluorescent lights, and then go back into the college, junior college gym at 2, and just realize like that's where I should be. I love being in the gym. I love the interaction with the girls. And you know, I get to teach too. It was something new for me, but it really parallels coaching. And so I really enjoyed working with those student athletes. I got my master's degree at Azusa Pacific College because I wanted to apply for a full-time position at a junior college. While I was completing that, an opportunity became available in Sacramento at American River College, and it was as a full-time professor and coach of their volleyball team. I thought it was a long shot, but my the financial advisor I was working for had a lot of experience at that level and said, you should do it for interview practice. So I said, okay, I'll get on the phone call first round, and then I made it to the second round, and then they flew me up to Sacramento, and I was almost done with my master's degree, and the president of the college called me a couple days later and said, we'd like to offer you the position. So at 26, I got offered, this position of a lifetime. A lot of my coaches that I had played for said, this is the dream job. This is the job where people want to end up, is coaching at a junior college. And so I felt really lucky and fortunate. I love my time at American River. I met my husband up there, had my first baby up there in Sacramento, was living a great life, was there 8 years. I had a tenure as a professor at the college. I love my colleagues. I love the student athletes there and that dynamic and helping them get off to a 4-year college. That was really rewarding and a special experience for me. I didn't see myself ever leaving. And then I got a call one day from a friend that the UC Irvine head coaching position was open, and they thought I should apply. And I thought they were crazy because I was very happy and had my, little family started and a house bought. I never dreamed of coaching Division I volleyball. And this opportunity was really unique because I was able, or could potentially, come back and coach where I played. I thought I could do a good job because I connected with the student athlete and understood how to be successful here. So when I came down, similar situation, I was surprised to be a finalist. And I was able to meet with some of the team in the locker room and really had an emotional experience because I felt like this was exactly where I was meant to be. I connected well with the girls. I knew there would be different challenges. And it's been a process getting my family down here and settled, but I'm settled now. I'm extremely happy working here at UC Irvine. I love my job and really am grateful.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. Zot. You all have forged such incredible paths in your lines of work. And as someone who was once a student at UCI wanting to work in sports as a woman, have you faced any challenges as a woman in sports in your line of work? And if you have, what were they and how did you overcome them? Paula, would you like to start?
I would. Actually, I think my challenges in sport all stem from obviously, one, being a woman, and also being a minority. I am fortunate that by my genetics, that I think I take after my mother and my grandmother, and I tend to look young as well. So my challenges have come from individuals who never assumed I was my age in the business. And so I would enter into spaces where individuals would assume I was a student or someone younger and would be dismissive of me or would talk condescendingly to me. And so I had to work really hard. I feel like, and I think I maybe overcompensated in some regards in how I dressed so that I could present myself as someone being older. You know, when you're petite, you look young. You know, again, my features, you know, and my genetics was a young looking, and so I just never felt like people took me serious enough that I was an adult and an adult in a, you know, working in a career in a profession. And I had to overcome people thinking that I was just, you know, a young 20 something year old or a student. You will find in the workplace that I rarely would wear casual clothes, because if I wore casual clothes and no makeup, I would often be asked what class or what year I was in school. And I had been out of school for 10 years or 15 years. So, you know, those were just the typical times that I had that was more dismissive of my role as a woman in sport. Um, the things that I felt that were successful for me for trying to overcome that was to, one, again, make sure that I knew the industry. I knew the business. I'm of a mindset that you have to learn, and learning is every day, every year. Um, one, to grow and to understand, and if you want to progress, you have to continue to learn. And so I put myself in that particular position. I also was fortunate to have a boss when I started at the Big West Conference that knew that I had to forge my way on my own. I came in as a compliance coordinator and was moving into being a compliance director. And so many years, his longevity at that particular institution, Big West, was, at the time it was PCAA. That's how long ago it was, Pacific Coast Athletic Association. But he knew that the membership would call him for everything. I was, you know, his support staff member, and so he knew that I needed to get on campus. I needed to present the content and materials for intercollegiate athletics and be able to interpret NCAA rules and regulations. And so the stretch for me was going to football and primarily men's basketball coaches meetings and presenting on NCAA rules and regulations. And circling back to my point about learning and knowing your business and industry, you're never so comfortable. Public speaking is not one of the things that I enjoy doing. I don't know, lots of people probably don't, but I obviously am comfortable in it when you know your information, you know your materials, you know your business. Then you can speak and present yourself as a confident person and a confident individual. And so I early on in my career had to cut my teeth with had men's basketball coaches, women's basketball coaches, and football coaches, and answer NCAA rules and regulations and toe the line, you know, and if challenged, I essentially had to tell them the way it was and not back down. And I think that was helpful for me to experience, to set me with really a great backbone and spine to stand straight up, to always look confident, to present my materials. And I presented it in a manner of which I knew it inside and out, and could be helpful. And so those were the things that helped me overcome people understanding that I knew what I was doing, that I was of the age to be in their sphere and work and accepted, and to be confident in what I was doing. And so that for me was probably the biggest challenge, is making sure that individuals understood that I was in the workforce and I was confident and knowledgeable about the business.
Absolutely. Thank you. Ashley, would you like to follow that up?
Yeah, I feel like I've been really fortunate in the fact that I've been in many supportive environments with colleagues, both male and female, and particularly at the junior college level, that have done nothing but been supportive and try to help me in my career. So I've had a lot of great mentors in that sense, both male and female. In this position in particular, I think there's challenges in game, you know, power struggle, you know, contesting different things in the match. And I pride myself in having a lot of confidence in those situations and matching, my male counterparts in the battle. Our conference is predominantly female head coaches now. And so, I think we have a great relationship, all of us. We support each other, we encourage each other. And I think that's unique. I'm not sure how many conferences have, that many female head coaches. Interestingly enough, a lot of us are former players ourselves at the college we coach at. So that's pretty cool. I think the challenge is, like Paula, is just finding your voice in a room full of very strong-minded people. And I'm still learning to do that. I take as much as I can in, like Paula said, and learn all I can so that, when I do speak my mind, it's coming from a place of confidence and knowledge. And so I think I'm careful about that, and maybe more careful than some other coaches. And I just think that's been a challenge for me. And, I'm forcing myself outside my comfort zone as much as I can to get better and better at that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Kimberly?
I'm sensing a theme here between the three of us because really, my early challenges early on, especially when I went with the team, was guys saying to me, how can you possibly know anything about football? You never played the sport, which is a ridiculous assumption. And to Paula's point, I learned, I'd grown up going to football games and I knew what a touchdown was and I knew the basics of the game, but I learned the game so that when anybody could go down that road, I could just, squash it right away and throw something at them. And I found in those early years, I tended to spend a lot of time surrounded by guys talking football. And part of that was me trying to build my confidence that I could do this, but also it was me saying, I am just as good at this as any of you, and I know my stuff. And to Paula's point, it's constant, it's every day, rules change, things happen. And there was a lot of that. But outside of that, I've also been very lucky because I'm with a team where the ownership has always historically valued its female employees. I mean, we have a female COO. We have a number of female vice presidents and directors. We have one of the only, I think there's 8 female athletic trainers in the NFL. I mean, we've always, and Jeannie Bonk, who's our COO, and I have talked about this because she is actually one of the longest tenured women in the NFL. She's even been around longer than I have. And we have both talked about that we've not had a lot of maybe some of those struggles that others have because our ownership and the Spanos family has been so supportive. But the early on stuff, absolutely. It was learning so that nobody could ask me a question that I couldn't answer, so that I didn't, somehow inadvertently feed into their ridiculous belief that a woman couldn't possibly know and understand football.
Absolutely. You've all shared such great advice and insight. What is a piece of advice that you've received along the journey in your career that's really stood out and that you think would be worth sharing and bringing to the next generation?
I'll start, and it'll be very short, and it will be to stretch yourself. One of the best pieces of advice I got was that honestly, when you're in a level of being uncomfortable, it's awkward, and you have to figure out how to live in that space of being uncomfortable. And because you can learn so much from that. And so in order for you to progress in your career, and also to serve and give to others and encourage them and push other people, is to live in this manner of stretch. So stretch your comfort, stretch your zone, just stretch your goals. I mean, those are the things that will help you grow in your career. And if you can envision doing that and doing it for yourself and for the people that you mentor, for the students that I'm working for, I can be in that safe manner to stretch them and to encourage them to expand beyond, being comfortable and or complacent and that sort of thing. So that's been my motto that I've stuck with me is stretch.
It's wonderful. Thank you. Kimberly?
I was smiling when you started asking the question because it popped right into my head. It was something my dad said to me when I was offered a job position that came at me from left field, and this was before sports, and I didn't know what to do. And he said to me, "Honey, you never want to look back and wonder what if." And I, to this day, still keep that forefront in my. He is unfortunately long gone, but I have kept that in my mind. You never want to look back and wonder what if. And I have had, and every time I take that chance, I've had some amazing experiences that, you know, if he hadn't said it to me in that way, I might not have done. I also want to add, though, that a couple of years ago, I heard, it was funny. I was listening to something, and it was one of our female athletic trainers in the NFL. And she said, and she was talking about this, and I realized as she just laid out these bullet points that it was exactly what I had done without knowing it. And I wanted to pass it on. And she said, be confident in yourself, find a good support system, find a mentor, and find someone you can bounce ideas off of or call when you have a problem. And if you've got that strong support network of people, and they can be a bunch of different people. My mentor was the state senator that I worked for early on in my career, who was this amazing woman who helped me when I ran for city council. You know, you don't ever want to look back and wonder what if, and that led to amazing opportunities, and those led to amazing opportunities. So really the first one is you never want to look back and wonder what if, and then that list that I just said.
Wonderful. Thank you. Coach?
Yeah, something my dad said also. You know, one of his pieces of advice were, you know, always to say thank you to the people that are helping you. It doesn't matter if they're, you know, the facilities, your staff, your players, if everybody's there to help you be successful. I can remember every match after I played at UCI and some were tough, my dad would go up to our coach and say thank you and shake his hand. And so I've just made the same, you know, commitment, no matter who I'm seeing at UCI, to say thank you, and that I'm grateful for their support. And I think that helps us all feel like we're one.
I love
team.
that. That's wonderful. Thank you. We just had someone sharing the discussion. It's so great to know that all of the struggle is worth it. We all know that working in sports is not for the faint of heart. It's long hours. There's a lot of sacrifice. It's tough on families. But what is it that keeps you working in sports and that is your favorite part about your job? Ashley, would you like to go first?
Oh, yes, this is an easy one. You know, I love the people I get to work with. I love my student athletes. I'm fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of great coaches that have been very supportive. And interestingly enough, a lot of our administrators have been here since I played here. So when people say, you know, their department, their athletic program is family, I feel like UCI truly is. I love what I get to do every day. And I miss, you know, being in the gym and having a full load every single day. That's been one of the hardest parts of the year. I love my family. I'm grateful to spend a little bit more time with them, but this year has shown me like just truly how much I love my job.
Wonderful. Thank you. Paula?
I'm on the same train that Coach Hain is on. In that I love what I do. I love sport. I sports that I'm maybe not even familiar with, that I don't know all the playing rules, whether it's fencing or, you know, it's rifle or other sports that we don't have at UC Irvine. Just the pureness of sport and going out and being able to watch people who are executing their skill and craft and trade. I can find enjoyment in that. If I'm out doing it every single day, when I get up in the morning, even when there's tough days or tough decisions to make, or even if there's a crisis that we're having to manage, I am still waking up excited about going into work. There's very few days that I will say I'd rather get back into bed, and so I'm excited about coming into work. For 30 years, I've not to Kimberly's point, in terms of not looking back, I have not looked back. I have not had any desire that what if I had done this or chose that different path. And so I feel like I'm in the career and the place that I'm supposed to be, and I can be in I can go from sport to sport all day long, and it's an enjoyment. It does not seem like work for me. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate it being part of higher education. To Ashley's point, I've worked at the Big West. I worked at Irvine. I took a little time at Riverside, now back at Irvine. And as far as I've ever known about Irvine, even when I worked at the conference office, and experiencing going to other conference schools, when I went to visit them in my role from the conference perspective, Irvine always seemed like that special place. It seemed like family. You could come on campus and I would see colleagues from other colleges, other divisions. Walking on campus, you would see people just greet one another with such affection and love. And back in the day, before the pandemic, I would see people hugging. Like, people go to school, as you see here on this panel. They would go to school, graduate from Irvine, and come back and work at Irvine. And it was and is a family oriented place. I love my colleagues I work with. I love my campus partners. I love the campus administration. I love the community I work in. Like, it's a celebratory time. And if I could speak to what's even going on in this pandemic right now, like the all-in attitude and support for one another to make sure that we're all thriving and coming through, providing resources and support for our student athletes. Like, this is just, Irvine is a special place. And I really can't imagine working anywhere else. And I'm in the career that I love, which is sports. So that's my joy every single day. And at the end, my why, I know why my why is. It's the young people. It's our student athletes. It is making sure that we're giving them opportunities to set up the next 40 or so more years of their life and their career. So getting them to graduation, making sure they have a good experience. And if that means athletic achievements, if it means bonding and finding good friends and having great connections and enjoying their experience, that's my everyday choice to do, so that the young people that come through our program are set up for success in the future of their life. So that's what I get joy from. It makes me happy.
Yes, thank you. Kimberly?
I've been sitting here listening to all of that, and there is that love of sport that kind of keeps us going and working with people. And I think that's been the hardest thing, and one of the really strong realizations during this pandemic, having to be stuck at home, is that one of the things that I love the most about my job is interacting with people. And it's what I do day in and day out. And, it's the fans on Sunday. It's being out in the community with our players and working on programming together and getting creative to solve community problems, and all the new people that I meet. And, I could probably go on and on, but it's really the connection, because, that's what has to keep you going. When you work for a team, there's good outcomes and bad outcomes. And believe me, it's much harder coming to work on Monday when you have just been destroyed the day before in your game. But every year, the wonderful thing is every year there's hope and there's new beginnings, and there's that sense of we can always do this together. And that's the other thing about a team, is that even though you've got the players and you've got football operations, the coaches and the management always view us as a team, all of us, whether we're front office or we're football operations, because it takes all of us to get a game on, to get us to hopefully our ultimate goal, which is a Super Bowl. And so I think, that the best parts of my job really are the interacting with people and being with the fans and seeing their enthusiasm and letting it just kind of wash over you on game day and feel that excitement. And I just have to say that some of the best moments that I can think of are standing on the field on a game day. And there's one in particular, I remember it was a playoff game, and I was standing on the field right before we went live on camera, and they had the fans all ready to start yelling and screaming, and you could feel the electricity and you could feel it going through your body. The thumping the fans were doing on the floor of the stadium, and the yelling and the screaming, and it was electric. And I can remember standing there thinking, okay, this is kind of cool. If you got to work on a Sunday, this isn't so bad. but it's that the fans and the energy and the people. And I think that's really the best parts of my job, and just the impact that I get to make as part of my job.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that memory too. I can feel it from here. Can't wait until we can get back to that. We actually have a question in our Q&A. I know. A UC Irvine parent has asked, what are the plans for featuring our women's athletes locally? Paula, I'll let you take that one.
Thank you. Well, I certainly from intercollegiate athletics standpoint, we have tried to reach out where we are with the social media and website content at this point in time to be able to highlight the activities that we have within our program. And we're strategizing a little bit more in terms of what we can do in digital and video clips, as well as just our own website for highlighting specific programs. For instance, I would say a young lady by the name of Tara Prentice. She's a women's water polo student athlete. She is a very bright student athlete. She is actually participating on the national team, and hopefully will be obviously participating in water polo. We have plenty of student athletes like her who represent our institution, both and they're very strong student athletes. So she's got obviously the accolades academically, but she also has an extreme amount of talent. And so that would be a design and a designation of which we would try to do to elevate the stature of her and the success that she's had and the success she's having at the national level. In addition to the women's water polo team, for instance, altogether, out of that particular program for our institution, and I believe 4 out of the last, I want to say 5-7 years, and we probably would have had it last year, although we did have to stop from the spring term, would be to highlight that entire team, national level competitors. They have been, like I said, they have been a postseason bound team. Again, similar to Tara, their student athletes excel academically as well, and we would be looking at highlighting all of those students on behalf of UC Irvine in our community. One of the other things that I think we do well that we finally have brought back is our student athlete recognition. It obviously took a hiatus because of the pandemic and not being able to do it in person. We're still trying to celebrate those individuals, but we would like to have in-person opportunities to celebrate our student athletes. And obviously that would be of the female side of the house. The other thing I think is important for us to do is recognizing the history that we've had in athletics. And so we've also brought back our Hall of Fame. And through our Hall of Fame, we're able to recognize both male and female, but more specifically, the question was related to female student athletes. And so we would be looking to highlight the achievements of former alums through our Hall of Fame program and recognize women. And then the other pieces that we do that's part of our business is really when there's the National Girls in Sport Day, things like that happen in our community, to be sure to highlight our student athletes there and invite young inspiring athletes to our campus so that they could see great role models from the perspective of our student athletes who are presenting in front of them for the day, the National Girls in Sport Day, although it is an inclusive environment. But those are the kinds of things that we would like to do. And to anyone that has other suggestions, I would say if there's more that we could be doing out in the community that you have involvement or suggestion, please put it in the chat and make sure that we are doing our due diligence on an outreach and highlighting our student athletes.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have another question to the group. It is, as head coach, executive, or chief administrator in sports, do you pay certain focus to mentoring women coming up in sports? Kimberly, would you like to answer?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important that for young women who want to get into sports, that internships are really something that's very critical because that's where, for instance, I have hired all of my full-time staff over the years, literally all of them from my interns, because I need to see and be able to work with you to see how you are under pressure, how you handle fans, how you handle working with players. And, you know, we get a chance to see that when you intern with us, but it also gives me the ability, which I've done over a number of years, of helping young women really build a resume, really give them, you know, that additional little, you know, sometimes they don't need a lot. They need a little nudge of encouragement and help to understand how strong they are and the skill set that they really have. Because one of the things that I found early on is that I needed to stand up for myself more. And I needed to ask for what I wanted. And I think sometimes as women, we don't do that. You know, I see a lot of my male counterparts saying, I want that job and I deserve that raise. And they're in there asking for it. And I'm thinking, oh, well, you know, if they really think I need it, I deserve it, they'll tell me. Wrong. You know, and sometimes it's really helping the younger women understand that they need to stand up for themselves and they need to ask. And so I have tried very hard over the years, doing a lot of mentorship programs. I'm a Rotarian and I work a lot with young high school students through our Rotary program as well, because I really believe that that's a very important thing that we do.
Can I just real quick add on to what Kimberly said? I
Yes, please.
wholeheartedly agree with regards to women in business and speaking up and asking for what you want. And I would add to that, accepting offers and promotions and career positions when they're given to you. We tend to want to demonstrate that we really know what we're doing, and we'll do it another year, and we'll do it another year, just so there's no question that we know what we're doing. And to her point, men will get a promotion, they'll accept it and figure I'll learn on the job. I'll figure it out and get it done. And so if I can change that perception and that mental state and say, take that opportunity, because in trust and believe in yourself, you will get it done as well. And so if I could help young women get to that point of speaking up and accepting the offer when it's due, because it is, and it's due to their work.
Wonderful. Thank you for adding that. Coach, would you like to add to that question?
Sure. My first year here, second year here, I had a staff of all female coaches, and there was a sideline picture posted on the NCAA Instagram that said it's something to the effect of, it's nice to see this. And it was surprising to me because I have come from such a supportive environment that I didn't know it was unique to have, an all-female staff at this level. And funny enough, it was one of our most successful years we've ever had here. But it's, the staff has changed since then. But, I have a list of requests for recommendations in my inbox right now from people that have graduated, and I make those a priority. My girls graduate and know, I'm willing to do whatever it takes and push them, like Paul and Kimberly were saying, outside of their comfort zone to go to graduate school, to pursue that job. And as I get more experience and more connections in the community, I do whatever I can to help them after they graduate to get into whatever, position that they might be interested in.
Ashley, we have another question for you. You mentioned the close relationship between coaching and teaching. Would you expand on this?
Yeah, I feel as strongly about the students I taught in the classroom setting as I do my athletes. I tend to spend more time with the athletes, but whether you're teaching them kinesiology or volleyball, you're teaching them something. And I think that's one thing, but the more important thing is, it crosses over to that relationship, that coach, athlete, student, teacher relationship where you're supportive of them, willing to work with them, beyond the classroom setting, and really just invested in their success. I think that's like the big parallel is you want to see them succeed, whether it's on the court or in the classroom. And you go about, spending the extra hours tutoring, individual sessions with that person because you want them to be successful. And so the reward in seeing them be successful, and then, the hard part when they aren't, those are the
Great,
parallels.
thank you. A little follow-up to that as a student or someone who wants to go into the line of work, what's something that a student can do right now that's going to help them bolster their resume and get a step forward into working in sports? Is there anyone that would like to go first?
I'll go. I would say volunteer is a great way to start. There's a lot of positions out there where you can be a volunteer, especially at the college level. If you can find a way to work your way into the athletic program and get involved, because it's going to be the connections you have that can help you later on get that job you want. So just developing those connections.
Thank you. Kimberly?
I was just going to say internships again, because if you want to work on the front side of the building, whether it's PR or corporate sales or partnerships or marketing or digital media and even accounting, there's internships in professional sports teams, and you can get in and see if you really like it. Because the one thing you don't want to have happen, and I've had this countless times over the years, is someone sitting in front of me interviewing for an internship, and I'm looking at their degree and it says finance. And why are you looking for an internship with me? And they're like, because I hate finance. I got there, I got the job, and it wasn't what I expected. Well, if they'd done an internship, maybe they would have realized a little bit more quickly, and could have changed. And so in sports, there's lots of internships. And that's really how most people sort of start their way in on the business side. And then, of course, if you are looking on the actual sports side, especially now for women, you have to really research and take advantage of some of the programs that are out there, like the league's annual NFL Women in Careers Forum that we have, which actually just happened last week. I think they've been doing that now for 5 years, and there's been more than 118 women that have landed jobs with the collegiate and with professional sports as a result of that forum. So there's a lot more of those opportunities out there. So you have to do some research. It's not going to get handed to you. That's the thing that I have to remind everybody is nobody's going to hand you anything. You have to go work for it. You have to research for it, and you got to put in the time. I know everybody wants to graduate from college and get that really high paying job, but if you want to work in sports, you better be prepared to do grunt work and learn and really work for it. So
great advice. Great advice. As someone who wrangled cables for years, I definitely agree. Paula.
Yeah, I think they've both hit it perfectly. So if I could, I will add the element for student athletes who are currently in college. Similarly, take advantage of the opportunity when you have it, when you have an off season and you can spend a little time volunteering, doing an internship, summer programs, getting into leadership type development programs, anything that you can do to build your skill set and knowledge of that particular industry is important. And then I do like to remind student athletes when they come in as a freshman that they start early with the career services, the life skills part of our business, going to the career center and here at Irvine, we have a great program in career pathways, and start as a freshman. You would be thinking about, what am I really going to put on my resume as a freshman? But look at a template that you want to have designed, and then you start adding to your skill set. You start describing what your transitional and transformational skills are from being a team player and a teamwork, and how that being a student athlete in sport transfers to your work environment and work experience, and start early so that you don't forget all the successes and things that you've done along the way, all the positions that you've been on, all the groups that you volunteered for, your community engagement opportunities, and then just celebrating what that student athlete experience has given you in terms of the cachet that employers like. And so start as a freshman and keep building that, and then you're going to work on your resume writing. You're going to work on your interview skills. You're going to work on your dress attire for the job and mock interviews. And then I'm always looking at trying to find ways to incentivize. So if you can create a LinkedIn profile, give some thought to incentivizing that. And so if you set it up correctly, you put your photo up and you tie your resume to it, again, how do you help the students along the way? So when graduation comes, that they're ready to go and ready to go in the profession. But I think it's important to have that opportunity to do experiences, know where you can go. Do you want to do professional? Do you want to do college? Do you want to do youth and high school? Like, try your hand at all of it until you find that love and passion, and then give a little bit of experience so you're not trying to figure out too late.
Wonderful. Such great advice. Thank you all for sharing. We have just, so I would like to end with a quick question. What has been your favorite point in your career? What moment stands out among the rest? Let's start with Coach.
Monday, March 1st, 2021, I get to see my team again. After this crazy year, it's been like no other. So I'm just like chomping at the bit to get back in good old Crawford Hall. And honestly, it's just, reflecting on everything that's gone on this year, it's just going to be such a treat to be back in the gym with them.
Thank you so much.
And
Paula?
together as a team.
There's so many. It's hard for me to pick one.
Would you like us to come back to you?
You know what? I'll speak to one that always comes up, and it is it was the start of my career at UC Irvine and working in academic and student athlete services. And I had my mentor reminded me that I often needed to repeat myself and do reminders. Again, one, so that people learn or pick up what you need to do. I was working with a student athlete, and I was really concerned with this particular student because we were working on them becoming, the goal was to become a scholar athlete. And I was really concerned when I'd have an appointment and we'd meet, and he'd say, I'd say, put an appointment in your calendar, and he'd flip to the address book. And then I'm like, ooh, he's in the wrong section. But the joy of that was that in 4 years, he was a scholar athlete. And every time I can celebrate that kind of achievement for a student, that is a highlight for me. And so beyond sport, that one always comes to mind for me.
Thank you so much. I love that. Kimberly?
I was sitting here madly trying to figure out one particular thing, and one popped into my head that's a little different, but it's not something that happened on the field. A number of years ago, you will all remember when the NFL started supporting breast cancer awareness and early detection, and the guys started wearing hot pink, and suddenly colleges were wearing hot pink, and then little, youth football teams were wearing hot pink and bringing awareness to it. And I was watching all of this, and I remember calling our representative at the Susan G. Komen Foundation and saying, okay, this is all great, and now what do we do? And what's that next step? And in the course of about 3 weeks, we created a mobile mammography event. And she said, okay, you're going to get maybe 20, 30 people. And we did it at the stadium. And we opened it at 9 a.m. that morning. And we had more than 100 women already lined up. We had women that had, and this was after the big meltdown in, when was that? 11. And people had lost their jobs, and we had people who had lost their health insurance, and they were scared. And over the course of that day, we had so many women, and actually a few men, show up that the health organization we were working with had to get more mobile vans out there. And we ended up getting a lot of people scheduled for appointments. But I remember standing there watching all of this going on and thinking, this is the ability of a team to bring people together and bring awareness and to actually help people. And we had quite a few cases that were sent for diagnostics that day, that hopefully we caught women's cancer early. And that has always stuck with me, that was the power of sports to bring people together. And because we did it specifically at the stadium because it was a safe place to do it and everybody would recognize it.
Beautiful.
And so
thank you so much for sharing. And that's all we have time for this morning. But thank you, panelists, so much for your insight and for taking the time. And thank you, guests, so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. Don't forget to check out additional programming that UCI has planned for you this weekend. And of course, tune in to ESPN3 tonight for the big game as men basketball takes on UC San Diego. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
You.